Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another recording of MTG Arena. Today is Monday, March 9th, and we have had a bit of a false start there. Not sure what was really going on, but in the end, my streaming internet connection seemed to be having trouble. Seemed like my entire computer seemed to be having trouble. I tried to restart it. In the process of restarting it, it wouldn't restart, so it lost my Chrome session, which has happened several times. Kind of gave me a good excuse to be forced to close a bunch of tabs that didn't need to be opened. Particularly, I had 4 different windows, each with probably 100 plus tabs open, just around research and working on my my digital calendar sign, e-ink sign that I was working on, and I haven't gotten back to working on in several weeks anyways, so I guess I'll be starting fresh there. We didn't have a ton of video game tabs anyways, so I've recovered from that and just reopened everything that was on What's on Steam, which is my main source for games that came out on Steam over the weekend. Not a lot happened, frankly, on the weekend, so we didn't have a lot anyways. So I doubt we're even going to miss any news, or we may miss a little bit of news, but I don't think anything really happened. Let's go ahead and jump into... We were playing this red deck, and just to play red cards. And we'll probably be done with this daily quest in this next game. And this is just a good opportunity to try and figure out if this stream is going to work. People were commenting on the previous stream, and it didn't go anywhere, so I privated that. Let's see, I'll need to pop out the chat again and see if I can send it out to the people I want it to my phone. And we'll just start with the chat message again. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's certainly very uncommon to be resetting your computer twice in my computer. For me, at least, it's very uncommon to reset the computer twice for 2 weird reasons that I don't know. Maybe it just got a weird boot there, and that was a problem. Maybe it was a case of maybe it was just a case of the YouTube ingest server not really working at this point. Could be any number of things, and could have been my internet. It seems like my internet is fine. I did put a watchdog, just a short little bit of code to run every 10 minutes on my router, because consistently it has been a problem that if my router loses connection to the internet through the ISP's fault, it needs to reboot to try and fix that. So I found a bit of code that will run a Linux command just seeing if www.google.com exists, and then if that file is there, and it should always be there if you're connected to the internet, it just passes along a positive yes, that file exists. It's different than trying to run ping because of just ping will not give you a straight yes or no answer. It'll give you a full readout, which for humans is fine, but you can't test for just, is this a positive 1 as in true, as in yes, or is it a 0 as in no, as in false, not true. Let's see. So that's why I had to look up different code than just running a ping. But then all it does is outputs online to the command console, which nobody will ever see if you're online, and if you're offline, it just tells the device to reboot. Now that does mean if my internet service provider is just down, it'll reboot every 10 minutes over and over again. Not a problem. That's exactly what you want it to do. Okay. 3 damage and scry. Yeah, we'll take that, whatever that is. I don't want to read it. And then another damage here. And we'll play this. And, well, yeah, I was nearly at a full victory. Like, I wasn't really even expecting to get a victory from playing this deck. And we need like 4 more red cards. So I'm not gonna put up the previous recordings. They were one was like only 3 seconds long as an experiment. The other one was a game long for about 20 minutes. We'll just start over fresh. There actually isn't even a lot to say because over the weekend I one day woke up and then immediately wanted to go back to sleep, and I'm thinking I'm gonna have to go back to trying sleeping pills to try and get a reasonable amount. The problem is I'm waking up at like 8 or 9 in the evening, maybe a little bit earlier than that, and then I just immediately want to go back to sleep, maybe watch a little bit of TV, but I really don't have time for that, obviously. And so you just kind of make no progress at all towards achieving anything. The other day I had to move an image I had to basically make an image from a 64 gigabyte micro SD card, which I tried to do using Windows software I was unfamiliar with. It's really hard in Windows, where it's super easy in Linux, just using the program DD. What does this do? Twice the damage for all the mana. Right. Is this an artifact? Alright. Look at that. That rarely should work, but somehow did. So yeah, I wasted time spending like 3 hours using a software I was unfamiliar with, trying to make an image. The image failed, the process failed, and then after finally making the first image, I had to install that image to a 256 gigabyte micro SD card, and since it was a RetroPie image, that's not even a big deal because they can just expand the partitions through Linux very quickly and easily. It would have been a lot harder to do it in Windows to get it to take up the full space, and then I had to load a different image onto the 64 gigabyte one, so it was just an entire day for as much as I was awake, dealing with moving files over and using my main computer and causing my main computer to crash in the process. And so yeah, I didn't really accomplish anything. Somebody commented saying that I should sound more alive and more like a human on one of my videos, and I'm like, yeah, that's not very helpful information. I get hundreds if not thousands of views a day, and people seem to be able to live with it. I really would only want to hear that kind of feedback if you were a speech therapist and you said something more specific. And I was in speech therapy and fully cured as far as the speech therapist was concerned when in like junior high. And in fact, I oddly turned into a nerd just so I could avoid being in class, and turned into the teacher's helper for the speech therapist for about half an extra year. But yeah, the less alive is probably because I was rushing through to get video game news covered and speak more like a human. I don't even know what you really mean by that. I would probably say there is a high level of people on YouTube in particular that have taken on this huge affectation, like the hey, what's up guys, we're here doing something awesome and we're gonna have a great day. I can't wait to get back into Minecraft, all you 9-year-olds that aren't supposed to even be on YouTube because you're supposed to say you're 13 or older. Yeah, there's plenty of YouTubers out there that do that and succeed at that, but that's just not my deal, and it's never going to be my deal. That's why I adopted the kind of moniker on my channel, calm, critical, and I don't even remember what the other C, and complete. Yeah. That's the three things I'm looking for when I'm making my videos, is to not be somebody who's trying to just get a bunch of 9-year-olds and put on this high energy experience. If anything, I'm trying to be somewhat closer to what a 24-hour news reporter would be, but even they seem to often put on affectations. And frankly, there's plenty of people out there that do the high energy thing. And can't really compare my viewing of YouTube videos, content creators, because like a lot of times, for better or worse, I'm forced to watch videos made by people who are barely speaking English. Like, particularly if I'm trying to do anything technical or computer centric, you often get some Indian who, the way Indians speak their native language of English is very, very different from the way Americans, United Statesians, speak English. Or often I'll watch a bunch of British people, their dialects aren't that strange. There's enough comparison there. And sometimes you'll get some crazy Russian people making videos too. And yeah, crazy Russian hacker is who I'm referencing there. So yeah. Somebody else also friended me on Steam, and then they texted me in Steam chat. I guess we just want to play our black deck and see if we can actually get victories now. Seems like the stream is going. I didn't respond to it because I was in the middle of recovering this. I don't think I'm going to respond to comments like that. I'm pretty much offline as far as Steam chat goes. Like, it's just never going to happen. If I'm actually looking at Steam, it's a rare point. I'm usually only on Steam's interface when I'm shopping. Otherwise, I'm playing a game throughout Steam and using Steam, and then the overlay and all of that should be muted and usually is muted, because I don't want those distractions, nor do I want those things to pop up in the middle of recording videos. So apologies if I don't respond to people on Steam. I do actively ask people to friend me, even if they just want to friend me, that's fine. But that's kind of about it. Like, mostly I am e-begging for people to friend me on Steam and give me games. But if they just want to friend me and build up their friends list, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them seeing statistics of what games I'm playing or seeing what I own. Or even, heck, if they wanted to offer a trade offer for trading cards, I'm happy with that. But the palling around, talking, chatting, playing some kind of multiplayer game, that's just not likely to happen ever. Maybe there at some point in the future, but highly unlikely would I actively try and seek out friends to play some kind of multiplayer game, because it's not going to be a very fair or fun experience for anybody. I'm a pretty pathetic first-person shooter, so if we were trying to do something like Counter-Strike Go, I would be holding everybody back. Also, I'd be talking and criticizing the game, almost certainly in recording, which again takes away half of my focus and attention. So that's another factor to keep in mind. This guy's got nothing. Interesting. Let me just, I guess, double check to make sure we're going full screen. Yeah, that works. So, since my entire browser and everything was reset, some of these zooms are gonna be weird, I think. And we're just gonna have to kind of work with it. Let's see. That's a great example. I just totally got distracted there and did not realize it was on the middle of my turn, and not really running into a timer, not really seeing anything. I would say, the music seems just too loud in general. Let's go ahead and do some of this, first of all. There is kind of a lack of... oh, that sucks. That just sucks. There's a lack of sound effects telling you it's your turn until you start hearing kind of the heartbeat. And I guess I might as well warn people now that it certainly didn't help my back any having to bend over and reset my computer. earlier today. So yeah, I'm in pain already. I've been taking pain pills, Tylenol, and I don't know if it's gonna work, frankly. And you're supposed to, they're like supposed to take 2 every 6 hours, no more than 10 in a 16-hour period or something along that lines, and I've already taken 2, and it doesn't feel like it's really doing what I would have hoped. They kind of were working, in all fairness, because I've been moaning and complaining about back pain, but I didn't really want to just go down the path of taking Tylenol to relieve the pain and not address the underlying problem, but it's just gotten to the extreme point where yeah, it's getting really bad, really hard to stand up out of chairs, often taking 3 or 4 minutes just to lean forward, have your back spasm, lean back to relax it, wait a minute, lean forward, have your back spasm again. It's just, yeah, it's getting really bad, and that combined with just an uncomfortable chair, which has been a consistent problem, makes it increasingly difficult to try and sit in the chair for multiple hours, and I had already been in this chair for a couple hours because of the initial stream attempt. So at any point we could wrap up today. We probably will get all the daily quests done and probably get all the news done because there's just so little, but that is an if that I also probably shouldn't promise, because I don't know if I can really guarantee to deliver on that. We've got some new games coming out for the Epic Games Store. Right now is Offworld Trading Company and Goner. Yeah, I'm still think it's realistic news to report when games are free on storefronts that are somewhat legitimate. I guess a good question would that be to ask, is there, at what point does the Epic Store stop becoming a reportable storefront? Because I really don't report on good old games giving out games. I really don't report if Ubisoft's Uplay or EA's, whatever their service is called, gives away games. I guess the main thing for me is my personal interest of having a potential backup of games, a backup collection just in case Steam somehow does go out of business. Speaking of potentially going out of business, it's not very video game related, but it is anime related, which often does correlate with video games. There has been this increasing push to shame and attack people who have anime figurines, Figma, as it's called in Japan. A lot of them are gacha bait figurines. Most anime figurines are super expensive, like $90 for a figure. They very different from Western figurines for video games in the sense that it's usually an anime girl. They usually have skirts. That's just the art and fashion of Japanese people. Is like very few Japanese women wear pants, and they usually have underwear called pantsu in Japanese. And so if one is to choose, you can turn the figurine upside down and see that they're wearing underwear, which is the realistic representation of reality. Like, it would be way worse if they weren't wearing underwear. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely plenty of figurines out there that are just straight up porn, where they aren't wearing underwear at all or clothing at all. But these are products sold to people who wanted that product and are exploring their fantasies in a safe and non-harmful way, as far as I'm concerned. The push to attack people on this is ridiculous because they're convincing like Amazon not to sell standard figurines, whereas like I don't kind of understand if Amazon was getting pressured not to sell like the lewd naked ones. Yeah, okay, that can be sold on a different storefront. And therightstuff.com, that's RIGHT STUF.com, I believe is how that's spelled, would be more than happy to take all that business and not compete with Amazon, which frankly buying anime or anime affiliated merchandise from Amazon has never been a really good deal. Do I want to attack here? No, I think we just play Bola Citadel to the end. So they've stopped a third-party seller from selling them, which, fine, whatever. But also, Australia is just almost on a weekly basis attacking anime in general, and any and all. It seems it's frankly just revenge for World War II, and pretty much blatant racism by, I think, at least one senator, if not a whole group of them. This is just a dog whistle to kind of attack Japanese people in general. But they did find that even one of the Australian senators had figurines in his office, which, okay, you're a senator, you probably shouldn't have anime figurines in your office. But people complained and he took them out, so them then making a huge hashtag #MeToo type response to it is ridiculous. But yeah, this is oddly the world we're living in, and it's not good for free speech, particularly. It's not good for artistic expression. And Japan in general is potentially set up for some real pain pretty soon from now if the coronavirus manages to actually cancel the Olympics, which is a big if for me, but if that happens, then that's going to be a problem. Alright. Okay. Can I attack with this and do anything? No, so we would need 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's not enough. We need to go one more turn because we don't have enough things on the field. Yeah, if the Olympics get canceled, there's a lot of investment that's lost there for Japan. If the coronavirus continues, there's a lot of loss in the economy for everybody, but Japan would be definitely affected being so close to China. There's probably a lot of loss due to the coronavirus already. Unrelated to that, but maybe slightly related in some way I don't see, the OPEC negotiations seem to have not gone too well, so oil prices seem to be falling, which is theoretically a good thing, but could be a bad thing if it happens too much. I don't know how bad of a thing it really would be, because oil prices plummeting only affects rich people who have invested in oil, and like Saudi Arabia and Russia, who are major oil producers. Whereas it would lower the cost of shipping goods and generally lower the cost of everything, which would potentially help many other industries. And to get back to the Japanese thing, which I'm much more familiar than OPEC, it is also kind of interesting because right now they're having a real conversation about getting rid of their censorship policy, in which all live action porn and, well, all porn of any kind, but live action porn in particular has always been censored in the lower half of human bodies. So they're talking about uncensoring that and allowing the adults in Japan to buy unblurred porn for the first time. So there could be many shifts in many different directions. We very well might see less amounts of anime adult content as soon as the regular live action stuff is more interesting to Japanese, which really probably wouldn't affect video games too much. There'd still be plenty of people willing to animate and the anime art style. If this somehow doesn't work, I'm gonna feel really dumb for a couple of reasons. One, I sacrificed the food tokens when I should have been sacrificing the heraldic banners and the spinning wheel. Two, because I didn't play the Witch's Oven twice to bring the Cauldron Familiar back. I managed not to ruin myself here, but I almost lost. Just because of my stupidity. We're gonna have to start covering the news more, and yeah, I don't think there's too much more to rant about. There's a continuing thread in which all localization and or censorship in Western dubbed anime is now being looked at as in a different light, as more of a social justice fed or inspired censorship thing, which take it however you want. Like, anime fans have never really liked the dubs, and they've always been censored. I think it's probably just a newer generation that is realizing that, and no purist has ever been watching the dubs, or even in older times, most purists weren't even watching official subs, simply on the fact that the subtitles often were not to the purist liking. Japanese language is super subtle, so it's pretty easy to argue about what is being said. But yeah, there's an effort to like fix and mod back in the original costumes for Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE. But I think that's a Switch game, so you'd have to pretty much have a hacked Switch to use it. And yeah, we are still getting a decent amount of censorship of costumes. Which people are not enjoying or approving of. The people that know about it, the people that don't know about it probably don't care one bit. Moving on though, like it really is boiling down to almost a weekly what's happening in censorship amongst video games. There probably is an article every couple days. TechRaptor has an article here. Call of Duty Modern Warfare Battle Royale leaks have been confirmed. Okay. Another Battle Royale. Very, very late to the party. And really, if I was to, from the outside, explain it, I would explain it as a desperate attempt to either shift or make more money out of Call of Duty, neither of which stands firmly on the history of Call of Duty. Whether that's a good history or a bad history, I'm not even sure. Let's see, what is this going to do? 3 damage? Well, if it's going to do 3 damage, we'll just sacrifice the creature. So, yeah. Call of Duty is such an established brand. For me, it's just like Halo. If somebody said that they were going to make a Halo real-time strategy game called Halo Wars, I would say the exact same thing, that's a really dumb idea and you're just milking the fans of Halo to make a completely separate product that will barely matter and barely tie into the story of the series. And what do you know, there's a game called Halo Wars that's a real-time strategy that barely matters, and as far as I understand it, and barely ties into the overall arcing story. You know, what we haven't seen a lot of lately is making a new game by a new name. And then just saying it's in the general universe of a existing series. Because I guess the marketing department knows if you are going to use your name, if you're going to make a game called Mass Effect Andromeda, that makes a lot more sense than making a game called Andromeda and saying it's set in the Mass Effect universe. You can keep people tapped for a while, or one of them tapped at least. But until I get Citadel back on the field. Oh man, I wish I hadn't done that. Because I need Citadel more than I need a Vindictive Vampire. Kamasutra has an article. 2K Games is the latest publisher to pull out of GeForce Now. It's pretty obvious now that GeForce did not negotiate any of this at all. I heard this explained on like the Beastcast as it's basically through Steam, so you're basically renting a powerful computer that then installs your Steam account and installs the game on that powerful computer and plays the game for you. I don't know if if that's really what's going on, and certainly people are not happy about that. The thing here is either GeForce, NVIDIA just did not think they needed to negotiate at all, but then immediately backtracked and decided that they were going to remove games at the request of the developers, or they thought that they had negotiated it. Either way, it's just like not dotting your I's and crossing your T's, because there's two ways GeForce Now could have come out. They could have said, screw everybody, we're going to do this and we're not taking any games off at all, and they can sue us. And clearly they're not doing that. They're kowtowing. So I don't know if the lawyers thought that they were going to just make some kind of precedenting set case, which maybe they could win there, but almost certainly they wouldn't. And they would just create such a bad relationship with all video game companies in the process that it would ruin NVIDIA. So I don't know what they were thinking there. Or they should have just negotiated everything and said, yeah, we've got all the contracts signed, and we're going to pay all these companies based on what games are streamed a small fee on top of the sales price of the games that they have to buy through Steam in the first place. Or perhaps there is some kind of secret third play that's going on here, where they were negotiating with Steam directly, and this what NVIDIA Now was supposed to be actually Steam Link, a Steam Link extension, and perhaps Valve pulled out of the negotiation, or perhaps Valve is still negotiating, and whatever GeForce Now is right now, it will actually evolve into a Steam Valve service that Valve could then take control over. But I don't know why NVIDIA would want to take the blame for this in the early days. So, I mean, just bad business, right? And I will say, as someone who has run a business or two himself, one of the major mistakes you can make, and I have personally made, is being unagreeable, being unfriendly to people who may be your competitors or your co-workers or your collaborators. Business partners, I guess, is the best phrase to use there. Yeah. So yeah, you really want to make as many friends as you can in business until you're right at the top and ready to stab people in the back. Follow that Amazon.com model where they were making a lot of partnerships until they eventually just ran everybody else into the ground. See, I can't even really eat these foods because I need as much of this as possible in case I get a bowl of Citadel and then a swamp and then a swamp. Also, I'm gonna be low on health. Can, I guess, attack. Now we've got something. Now we've got the victory we needed. Next. We've got a listing here called Wasteland 3 Day 1 Edition for the PlayStation 4. I don't know why that tab was open, but whatever. I opened a lot. And we also have a listing here for Cooking Mama Cookstar for the PS4, which we're getting listings for PS4 games, which is probably to say that we're not anywhere super close to PlayStation 5 listings, which makes sense because they haven't announced anything. This Christmas season, almost guaranteed, we're not going to have any new consoles, even if they were planned. Those are going to get removed as plans just because of the coronavirus. And honestly, I've been watching some numbers. If we are still dealing with the coronavirus in about 3 months, it's gonna be a big issue, like bigger than it seems even now. Because if it can make it all the way through spring, if it can manage to even potentially mutate and get some cold resistance through a winter, we may have a year-round virus that may be unprecedented. I don't know of anything that's as deadly that is around. Well, I guess HIV is around, but it's also not communicated by coughing and sneezing. But yeah, it's been a particularly warm winter, and the coronavirus is because of that. And remember, I played Plague Inc., and so I feel like I kind of have a small hobbyist understanding of this more than most. The fact that it's been particularly warm in Russia and Canada has already shown that there's been a high number of infections in those countries, whereas there's not as many infections being reported around the equator. But that very well might be because most countries around the equator tend to be pretty poor and not equipped to either report or test. So yeah, if anything, there's a chance here that the coronavirus is not as virulent in the warmer countries. So once it starts to warm up, that is generally when things are supposed to, when cold and flus tend to die out. So that is the one saving grace on it. However, if the coronavirus does have the kind of unrealistic attribute that Plague Inc. plagues have, in which that you're controlling the mutations and they mutate way faster and gain more things, gain more attributes than is realistic for one virus to have. If it does get a few mutations, though, it is going to certainly be problems. For instance, if it managed to be transmittable through sweat, and then we get into the warmer parts of the year and warmer regions, that's a problem. If it manages to be airborne, that's a big problem. If it causes blindness or cognitive loss and people start just having trouble thinking and focusing, that's a big problem. If it starts to expand to a point where it's infected almost everybody, but it's not really that deadly, which is where it is right now, that's fine. But then if there's a new mutation that turns it super deadly, that's a big problem. If it's causing just complete and total organ failure, if it's passable by skin rashes and scratching, you can just pretty much go down the whole list of everything that's on Plague Inc. and if it gets into that late game scenario of playing Plague Inc. Where you are just giving every single mutation to the people, to the virus, that's bad. Projectile vomiting, another one that could be a big problem. But we're not anywhere at that point, and people do seem like they are taking the threat more seriously than most, and people do seem to be probably freaking out a little bit too much about coronavirus, but not freaking out so much that it's unrealistic. People are washing their hands, which is the main thing that they can do. But they have been saying for a while we would do some new plague, and if it's not the coronavirus this time, it's gonna be something the next time. I don't know why I got talking about that though, other than it's just on everybody's mind. So let's move on. Gamasutra has an article, get a job, be a gameplay engineer at Heart Machine in Culver City, California. This seems like a job listing that we've had before. Gamasutra has a feature here, Game Design Deep Dive Amnesia Sanity Meter, which is clearly just a metric. It's just going to be a number that goes up and down. It's just the same as a health meter, really. I can't imagine it being anything else. Let's see. Here's a listing for a game called Robotics Notes Elite from Spike Chunsoft, rated Teen for Teen by the ESRB. PewDiePie is now making content and rocking a beard. He was watching a video of somebody else, so this is me watching someone else watching a video where it was Spot the Fake Gamer, and the fake gamer said that he was into a game called Haunting, which I've never heard of, and then he said he was into the Slender Man game, which I don't believe it's just called the Slender Man game. I believe there's more to the title than that. I believe it's Slender Man the 5 Pages. So I was gonna look up those and see. He also just had a complete lack of understanding of the names of the Final Destination Butterfly Effect game that I've completely forgotten the name of. I don't think it's called Final Destination. It was a PlayStation exclusive, but he's naming all of these characters. But in retrospect, there's some weirdness there, because even the phrase of a real gamer versus a fake gamer is kind of hard to prove, and they did kind of immediately eliminate a girl for no reason, yet the other girl was being very aggressive with the fake guy and calling him out on all of his things, and the other 3 guys apparently had no knowledge whatsoever, and so then they voted out the other girl. So very quickly all the girls who were real gamers and like League of Legends gamers and type, and clearly the second girl who was eliminated seemed to be the most knowledgeable of video games. So yeah, the stereotype lives on. Of course, the truth of the matter of any of a show like that, where is that it is probably run for a YouTube channel. It's probably a bunch of wannabe actors in California, and I mean they can all have a little bit of experience with games, but what is your line when you just find a real hardcore gamer? Is it one person who's played StarCraft for 10 years straight and knows nothing else about any other games? Or is it somebody who's more of a historian like me who kind of can tell you, well, in 1983 Donkey Kong came out, which I may be wrong about that. It may have been in 1983 the NES came out, and 1980 was Donkey Kong in the arcades. So, like, is it somebody who can tell you, like, tell you about like Night Trap or Custer's Revenge, or yeah, there's some questions you could ask. It's like you could ask everybody in the room, name one video game controversy and why was it controversial. You could ask, what was your favorite console and what games did you play on that console. That's a pretty basic question to ask, and then if they just go, oh no, I've always been a PC gamer, that's a little suspicious, to say the least. Here we're gonna and they really cannot beat this strategy unless they can play a card that would eliminate the Cauldron Familiar. That's pretty much why this card is going to be banned. Both of those cards are going to be banned fairly quickly. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that right now while I'm thinking about it. But it's really unfair to try to label anyone as a gamer. It's easier to simply label people as not gamers, and if that's almost certainly a self-selecting audience. Like, if somebody says they're not a gamer, you probably should challenge them on that a little bit and go, really, you never play any games on your phone or on PC, or you don't play like Free Cell or on your computer, or you don't do even like board games or cardboard or like jigsaw puzzles, crosswords, because frankly I would even be willing to let in people that are just doing the daily crosswords as a gamer, and with the caveat of saying, well, they don't play video games, but they do play games. I'd be that all encompassing, and I would say almost everybody is a gamer. In fact, if you're not playing any games in your life at all, you're probably wasting some great social interaction opportunities, and there's potentially something wrong with you in your head. Like, I hate to say it that straight, but yeah, if you're not finding some form of interactive entertaining, that there's probably something wrong with you, physically or mentally. Now, this is not an argument that they should all be locked up if they don't play games or anything like that. I'm just saying you should evaluate why you don't, on a somewhat regular basis, play something. Like the stereotype of old people playing bingo, for example. It's like, yeah, those are gamers. They're playing a game. They're not video gamers, but they're gamers. At least in my book. Alright, so we've got a game on Steam here called Rest House 2 The Wizard, which looks to me like it might be a point-and-click adventure game, but it also has a lot of looks to it like it might just be a kind of dark asset flip game that's like halfway there. I'm going to put it on the following list and be generous. This is $5.99 English full audio. Yeah. And we'll see. And the reason I wanted to do that is I'm going to type in the word haunting, because I have never heard of a game called Haunting. H-A-U-T-I-N-G. Haunting. Yeah. I will fully admit that a lot of video game names are often a brief description and pretty low effort garbage. And I don't know why the liar would have thrown out a fake name, because this was like the first game he mentioned before even Slender Man. Is why not, like, did he do no research? Because then he mentions Slender Man, and then he mentions like a red truck and a blue truck as locations in Slender Man, which again, I don't know if I really understand why that's what he gets from Slender Man. But here we are on Steam, and as far as Steam is concerned, there's a game called Haunting Hour, The Haunting Witching Hour, A Haunting of Billy, The Falconer. Like, it's not crazy to have a "the" in front of a game. There's a game called Pacified that's pretty well known. But yeah, as we're just scrolling down here, there's no recognizable game called Haunting on Steam. It is Plague Inc. for comparison. So, and it kind of makes sense, because why would you have the active version of that name? Why not a game called Haunted instead, if you were just going with a low effort name? There is a game on Steam called Haunted Gas Station. Here's a game called Connected Haunted, Haunted Past Realm of Ghost, The Haunted, Hell's Reach. Yeah, why not have something by that name? Haunted House, The Haunted Graveyard, Haunted Halls Collection, Haunted Legends Collection, The Haunted House VR. Yeah, plenty of things with haunted in the name. But if you were playing a game called Haunting, it would almost be a description that you're playing as the ghost haunting something. And then he said the other game that he was talking about, the second game we talked about, was the Slender Man game, which I believe there is a game called Slender Man The Arrival before I look at that, but I don't think that there's anything just called the Slender Man game, and it's shows a lack of familiarity, to say the least, to not know the name of the game. And he was trying to say he was into horror games, as if that's going to work people that aren't into horror games. It's not a bad idea, frankly, but it's not the best. either. So here on Steam, when I search Slender Man, you have Slender the Arrival, which I'm actually have the soundtrack, possibly because I already own this game. So yeah, if somebody said they were into horror games, you could probably question them pretty easily. Here's a quick and easy question. What's your favorite Resident Evil game? If they say I haven't played any Resident Evil game, they've never played any horror games. Almost certainly. You ask them, are they more into Japanese horror style games or Asian style horror games over Western style games? Ask them to tell you the difference of that. That would be fairly easy to answer. You might throw them a trick and say, how many Friday the 13th games have there been? If any, and to see if they'll say none. Anybody should be able to tell you that there's been at least a few Friday the 13th games. That's fairly obvious. So here's Slender the Arrival on Steam. It's on my wish list. I don't own it. And he was talking about a red truck, blue truck location. And I want to look and see if there's any screenshots on Steam of a red truck or a blue truck location. Maybe there is a free-to-play Slender Man game that's not on Steam, and it's not Slender the Arrival. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything at all describing a red truck or blue truck. And certainly that wouldn't be the main thing to take from this. Sorry. Yeah, if somebody said they were into horror games, ask them what do most horror game characters have in their hand more often than not. If they don't say flashlight, or what's special about flashlights in most horror games. Those are basic things that I think you could easily trick somebody else who's trying to fake like they know something they don't know. But I mean, you catch them on almost anything they said, as long as they say anything in detail and you ask any questions. You just have to have a slightly realistic conversation and know the subject relatively well yourself. It was very pathetic, frankly, to see that the other three guys were just not jumping in with their own questions, and they were just kind of avoiding conflict in this game show where you have to vote out the people that is the fooler. I also think the game show is set up wrong, because it seems like the surviving people that aren't voted out get a percentage of the winnings, whereas in a way that it would be beneficial to vote out the fake guy and then vote out then start pretending like you're the fake guy, so you well, no, you can't pretend like you're the fake guy, because then you'll get voted out too. You vote out the fake guy, then you just keep on convincing other people to vote against real people until there's only 2 people left, and then you're probably at that point only splitting the money between 2. Yeah, and that system just does not work well. It should be that the winnings are split between all the non-fakers, whether they've been voted out or not. Or there's even a bonus if you are a non-faker, that where they get an extra bonus amount of money. Do I need to do anything more? No. Let's just go ahead and activate this. Because in the end, after watching this video, and this is just me ranting and criticizing, it felt like the second female, who was the third to be voted off, deserved to win all of the winnings, if not at least more than the 3 guys who were just being avoiding conflict and voting against the person who actually found the largest amount of information out for the team. And again, the whole show may have just been staged. It may have been literally just a SJW straw man piece where the men were told to vote out the women first, and be threatened by an aggressive woman. Which, let's face it, if you're a gamer girl, you are going to have the same level, if not slightly more aggression than a gamer guy is. And gamer guys, stereotypically, are not equipped to deal with girls at all, is the stereotype. So yeah, I could see them being threatened by that. Although personally I've never found that. I find weak-willed, quiet women to be often very boring and irritating. I would much rather have a female stand up for their opinions and argue with me and be unagreeable than just be sweet and quiet. Even if I'm having to deal with like a complete and total idiot of a female, I'd rather have them argue their points, which are completely invalid, and see if they would be willing to learn or change my mind or change their mind more than someone just shutting down and being timid. Because that's no way to have a debate, and it's no way to propagate information or find a consensus. It's just shut down and believe whatever you want to believe in your own head. And that's not unique to females. There's a whole large number of people that do that. It's like, oh, we'll just glad hand you, we'll just agree with you to your face, and then completely not mean it and basically lie. Lie about agreeing with people. Moving on, we've got a game on Steam here called Axengard VR, which, yeah, looks like a VR game. Okay. It seems like you stand in one place, and, well, actually it seems like you teleport, and then it's kind of like a Orcs Must Die, but in VR. But it's not as good as Orcs Must Die, and frankly, you don't need the VR aspect, in my opinion. It's $13.49 discounted, English and Chinese. If Orcs Must Die did come out in VR, which maybe it did, I don't even remember if it did. We're dead. Didn't realize my life was so low. I've got nothing. Let's see. Komatsu has an article here. Let's see. Yumi Utsu Remaster Bundle Pack coming to the PS4 and Switch in Asia with English subtitles. What is this? A visual novel? Let's see. Yeah. It's a collection of visual novels, which they must not be that long or that good if it's a bundle of what seems to be like 1 main story and then 4 side stories, which may not be that long. It's a slightly different animation style too, which is always interesting. I guess we have to block this. Remember, we're playing ranked right now. I have to remind myself we're playing ranked right now. Right. We've got a whole bunch of things flying. So, kind of the only thing I can do is this. Gamatsu has an article here. Shenmue 3 DLC Big Merry Cruise launches March 17th. The stakes are high. Apparently you can gamble on the project. I kind of had forgotten Shenmue 3 came out, frankly, because of the Epic Store exclusivity of it and the kind of lack of consistent interest. Yeah, people who were interested in Shenmue had kickstarted it. They kind of got screwed on that Kickstarter, and then they're kind of getting what they want, and sorta, not really, because they wanted Steam codes, and they're being forced into or at least trying to force them into taking Epic Store codes instead. Well, this was a Ravnica pack, so it's not surprising that we are going to just have a couple of cards here. And a mythic rare wild card. Let's see if the daily deal rolled over. Wait a minute. This is an actual card. Or is it a card style? No, this is just a cosmetic for a card. It's 98%. The left daily deal now seems to be putting things at a high discount, where it doesn't feel particularly bad at all to spend 100 gold when you have nearly 50,000 to get a skin. But yeah, I'm not doing that. Also, in the previous recording, I was working on a deck that is now messed up here, and I was working on this blue deck to add black cards to it, and we didn't get that far. Let's see. And I don't think at this point I will be able to get back to working on this. Yeah, I have one Nicola Bolas Dragon Guard Planeswalker here, so I could get that card style. It's just not really worth it. And we'll have to work on that deck later. I'll have to remember to put some black mana in it. But I want to just keep on playing. Well, actually, do we have anything else here? Like this, we can play right now, and it ends in 46 hours and 50 minutes. They really need to not do what they're doing with the times, which is sometimes they label it as a hours colon minutes. Sometimes they label it as hour colon minutes count colon seconds. Even if they're gonna fake it and just put colon 00 at the end and not even count down the actual time, this is no good. No good at all. Now this one also is not worth the money, but this one is a free, so we need to do that right now. We've got Clone Gary as a deck, which has some cards in it that I can't really be bothered to look at. Or we've got Big Red as a deck, and this just unlocked, so I wouldn't have been able to do the daily quest where I needed to play red cards. Well, I could have put it off if I was smarter. So yeah, let's try this Big Red deck, and then let's try Clone Gary. Let's get that one card and then be done with it. Let's see. Since I didn't really read what these cards are supposed to do, not really sure what the strategy here is. I probably should mulligan for more mana though. Moving on, Komatsu has an article here. Memories off Innocent Filet and Innocent Filet for Dessert are coming to Steam in April. This is obviously a Japanese visual novel romance game from Spike Chunsoft apparently. Coming to Steam. Innocent Filet for Dearest is the entire titles, not Dessert. Misread that. This guy's indestructible, so we'll hold on to that guy. Let's see. We have a game on Steam called Tasty Jigsaw Happy Hour, which is obviously a low effort jigsaw puzzle with food this time for $2.99. English, French, German, and Russian, so take your pick on what country made that garbage. Obviously it's not going to fall into a game that makes it to the following list. This may have been reported already by me, but Bungie activates its remote war policy in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. Okay. We're going to be seeing more and more of that. Do you want to play this? Deal 2 damage, can't be prevented. This is a little interesting. On Steam we have Let's Learn Korean, Hangul, or Hangul. Korean was a created language by one of the South Korea's founders, and it was designed to be fairly easy to learn, and I assume this is South Korean language. Learning it though and understanding it and understanding the words, I don't know if that's particularly any easier than any other language, but it is interesting nonetheless, so I'm going to put it on the fall list. It's discounted to $4.24 and it's English with Korean full audio, which I would hope that you would get something that would help you yeah, you really wouldn't want just pick the random card for me. That sucks. You really wouldn't want it to be a situation where it doesn't speak out loud and thus you don't have a clue what the words sound like. We see only examples really of learning Japanese on Steam. I think there was a visual novel that they claimed was written in Esperanto, but I don't know if it's actually believable that that's the case. There's been very little interest in any kind of other language teaching software on Steam as a game. You would expect, with all the Portuguese, Brazilian game creators out there that tend to make pretty bad games, it's a little strange that there isn't a Portuguese, Brazilian, Spanish language teaching software. It's a little surprising. It's a little surprising that there's not a Central America, Mexican style, Spanish software. It's a little surprising that there isn't a French style language software. Once you start getting into like South American dialects or languages, or African languages and dialects, that's a little bit unlikely that you'd see too many of those. Can only cast this on a spell this turn. Will I even have a spell? 4 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. Yeah. It would be weird if there was like a Polish language game. It'd not be weird, but it's not surprising that there aren't games like that, or a Swedish language game. Those countries are pretty small and not particularly evangelistic about promoting their languages. Let's see. As long as your devotion to red is 5 or less. So I need to get more creatures on the field. Right now I have a devotion of 2 or 3. So once I got this on the field, I would be able to win. Or do some major damage at least. Next we have a game on Steam called Spider Climber, which looks to me like it's probably a asset flip game. It's a little too dark. Seems like you're this ball that rolls around with a firefly lighting your way for no good reason. Seems to me like there's only platforms. It doesn't feel like there's enemies or a gameplay mechanic or a heads-up display other than just seeing numbers go up and down and a number counter over here. It has some Asian letters behind it, which makes me suspect it's a cheap Chinese product. Discounted to $4.79, English and Chinese, allegedly full audio with both, which almost certainly means there's no actual speaking at all in it. Let's see. What does this one do? Do this. And there's the field. Discard any number of cards and draw that many cards. Well, I don't think I want to discard. I mean, we could discard that, I guess, and draw a new card. Alright. And then attack. Next we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Asian characters and then the word Max. It's either an old dating sim though, or it's a cheap Chinese one. And for the amount of text and different gameplay mechanics that it looks like, it probably is a Chinese game of some sort. Also, there's kind of an inconsistency in the animation styles. It's kind of soft and ugly, and then some of the animated parts seem to be drawn completely smoother and better than these still images. That looks way better as an intro. English is not supported, selling for $17.09 discounted, and it's Chinese only. So yeah. If anything though, I think this deserves maybe a little bit of applause in the fact that it kind of looks high budget for a Chinese game. It doesn't feel like they're just half-assing it. And yeah. There we go. This was a pretty easy game to play with to get the victories. I don't think I'm getting 15 victories today. By the way, I'm just gonna throw that out here. But yeah, we got a card and we got a pack. And, well, this is the card we get. Is Assassin's Trophy, which very possibly is a card that won't even be in standard play too long because it's a, what is it? Let's look here. This is new, this is new, this is new, this is new. This symbol is the kind of rocket ship symbol. The rocket ship symbol is the Guilds of Ravnica, whereas Ravnica Allegiance is kind of the upside down rocket ship looking symbol. So yeah, we're gonna see all of these cards leave standard. So having a special event to give us more cards that we won't even be able to play is kind of disingenuous. And it is Magic's game. Let's just be honest there. It is part of their shenanigans that they pull, is that they want you to have this super large collection of cards. But if you started to just say, let's bring it down to the 2 expansions that are going to stay as playable as soon as the shift happens, you really don't have that many cards. And when you start to actually look at all the cards, there's a considerable amount of garbage, just junk cards that nobody would play. It really is more equatable to what Hearthstone does, where if you looked at all the cards in the Hearthstone expansion, most of those cards are good and worth playing. There's very little junk in a Hearthstone expansion, at least back when I was playing it. And I guess I'm very happy Hearthstone did that, and that would certainly be something I would hope for in the new Marvel card game when it comes out. Is we don't want to see the massive amount of draft trash cards, and I'd like to see Magic itself get away from having draft trash cards too. I mean, if a card's just not good, just don't make it. Just have smaller amounts of cards that are good, and maybe that's what the individual selling of card packs is trying to accomplish, but they're doing it in such a greedy way that they're not going to really succeed with the hidden side cards. So I could play this, and then we'll play this, and when we run out, we'll play that. I don't even know what we're trying to do here. Yeah. Play this, and we have like only 2 blue cards, and it seems like our entire strategy centers around drawing for 1 card. So this is probably a really difficult deck. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. Demo Reborn DLC Egoist Special Selection launches March 8th, free until April 9th. Demo, I believe, is a musical rhythm game that I'm not sure ever came. Well, actually it is on the PS4 worldwide. Interesting. I didn't realize that. I didn't think he'd come to the West. It definitely came with little fanfare, to say. Alright, let's see. Play this. Guess there's no real reason not to put this on the field. Actually, this is the one you want on the field, I'm fairly certain. I'm fairly certain the idea here is to make a bunch of echoes, but I don't understand why. What does this do? What is the point of any of this? I don't get any of this at all. I don't understand why any of these cards would be helpful. It's like they made a deck just to be garbage. Like, well, TechRaptor has a screenshot Saturday survey. Jack is back. Article. Apparently, they're making a Samurai Jack video game. Okay, they're making a Samurai Jack video movie, so that's a decent tie-in. And then there's some other screenshots of games that are also in development. If you're interested, it's kind of not important information. This one just puts something from your graveyard into your hand. I don't. We can try this. Let's see. It only returns a creature. Still have no clue what the strategy is. Okay. Maybe you have a couple of these on the field, and then you make a copy of something, but I don't know what the something is because I didn't look at the deck. And see, that's the one thing that this special event is supposed to make you do, is play these decks and figure out this crazy strategy. But since it's not really holding my hand or telling me anything, or having me play through a scenario like a pre-programmed experience, you're left to your own devices to figure out how a deck works, which might be fun, but shouldn't be the initial experience, in my opinion. Like, here, if I win, it's just because I'm gonna be able to brute force this. Next, we have a game on Steam called Belote, which is not a card game I recognize. Sounds somewhat familiar, but yeah. You get back to the question of, would it be better to play Tabletop Simulator, or does this game potentially teach you how to play? The cards look awful, the background looks awful, it looks very asset flippy. It's $3.99. Says it has a bunch of language support. I would have to just say, even if this was my only opportunity to learn how to play this game below, it'd probably be better just looking up the solution, looking up the rules. Still just scrying. I mean, this might be the card here. This might be the one where you're just supposed to trade a bunch of clones. But I don't know. Next, we have a game on Steam called Chico's Ware, which seems to be a black and white simulation of a Game Boy game. Maybe nothing at all. It's early access, it's $5.99, it's way too expensive. It's English full audio allegedly, but then it's also bundled with a bunch of other garbage games for $32. Yep, and I recognize this publisher. And I don't think they've put anything on Steam interesting. Alright. Go ahead and play this. And let's go ahead and do this. I want to sacrifice a creature to draw a card. I don't know. I don't think so. Next, we have a game on Steam called Pendulum Swing: The Complete Journey, which looks like a point-and-click adventure game. Oddly, it's tagged lore rich. I thought that said love, but I guess that says lore. This looks interesting. Looks like it's set in the like 1950s flapper era, 1920s flapper era timeline. $15.29, a little too expensive there. English, no audio, unfortunately. I'm gonna put it on the follow list and see if people like it. If this is a decent RPG point and click, well, not RPG, but point and click adventure, I might be willing to play it if it went on sale and could get down to at least $7.50. Probably wouldn't be willing to pay much more than that. Right. I'm gonna take this and see if maybe this is. Nope, it's a legendary, so we can only have one. Still have no idea. Can't really attack. Could sacrifice it and draw a card. And I guess it wouldn't hurt to do that. Nope. Because I'd have to sacrifice another card to draw a card. Gamatsu has a new character for Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, the DLC character called Zoe. We'll leave it at that, because that's probably more information than needs to actually be reported. We have a game on Steam called Cube, which is obviously a low effort polygonal Unity experiment more than a game. 59 cents and claim a bunch of languages with a bunch of audios. We only have about 10 more games, and then I think we'll just wrap up, since it's been kind of a poor stream experience today. Just a bad start, and that added a lot of extra time. Certainly. What am I trying to do here? I have no idea. Like, no clue at all. I have plenty of cards still. This guy's gonna just start hitting me hard. We have a game on Steam here called Bunny Quest, which is just a match 3 Candy Crush style clone. Nothing special here. I guess they're trying to get in on the Easter market. $3.99, no discount, English and German, which is an odd combination of language support. I guess there really isn't a lot you can do with Easter. I mean, unless you're gonna just make a straight up Christian religious video game, which none of those actually get put on Steam. There's not a lot you can do. You're gonna make some kid-friendly, approved for all audience bunny type game. And if you're gonna do that, why not just make a mobile game and put ads in it or microtransactions in it instead? So he's got
someone's getting a little sweaty.
Their in-game solution, and I've got nothing. I'm gonna start taking one turn. Just gonna have to sacrifice this. If we're gonna find anything here. That's not what I meant to do, by the way. I meant to keep the one that wasn't tapped. And then, heck, maybe even I would have been able to trigger the ability and sacrifice the other one. I doubt it, but whatever. Next we have a game here on Steam called Mine Dungeon, which looks like a Minesweeper game with a very small board. Trying to sell on an anime girl, which seems really ridiculous. It seems like the gameplay might play a little bit different, and this might be more a level-based experience. But the level of graphics here is pretty bad, and I don't really see this as a major improvement over just playing regular Minesweeper. 99 cents. English, Japanese, Chinese, 5 achievements.
Let's get toasty.
The Libretro team has an obituary, which is weird, for a contributor named Cuddlefish. See, she was known under aliases such as Meeping SNES ROMs. She was responsible for the following projects: the Mu Palm OS emulator, the RetroArch overlay editor, also, and they made a memorial page. Still not a super useful obituary. When people put these out, it's not. Maybe we'll start seeing more of retro game emulator makers passing as they get older, but we still probably have a good 10-20 years before we start seeing a lot of them. And we have no idea what they passed from unless it's on the memorial page. And yeah, the memorial page doesn't really seem to show anything other than some comments of other people, and since they're all emulator makers who don't want to get sued, they're all under aliases, and so it's a little awkward eulogizing someone that you don't want to also out, even if you know who they are. Right, so can we do this? Can we create a token, a copy of a target? Legendary. That's stupid. So that's... So while this legendary might play a role in this strategy, it doesn't work. Or just... Let's see. There we go. I can draw a card without losing any life that way. At least because I don't have anything in my hand. Maybe we make a clone of this card next turn. If I could get 7 cards on the field, there's actually a potential win scenario here. But boy, is this slow and confusing. We've got a game on Steam called Maze Slider, which doesn't look like there's really any sliding. Maybe it's a box sliding puzzle game. Doesn't even really look like that. Yeah, I guess you are a box sliding around. 59 cents discounted English.
You want to fight? You got it.
Nothing there of interest. This really was like one of the best times possible to have the to have my Chrome session mess up. At least as far as I can think right now. It doesn't really feel like there was anything I was missing or had that it was too important. It was open as far as a tab. I'm seriously gonna win this. I don't deserve it by any means, but I'm still gonna win. We have a game on Steam here called Dino Adventures, which almost looks like a platformer playing with the bubble bobble.
Or, you know, don't.
The dragons. The graphics don't look great here, but this looks like it might have a little bit more polish than just a low effort platformer. So I'm gonna give this one a follow. $9.99 is pretty expensive. Portuguese Brazil, Spanish Latin Americas. And I'll be darned if I did not win.
I dwell in the shadows. Much easier on my skin.
We get a new Planeswalker. I believe that is a new card. let's see if we can figure out what the goal here was. What was the strategy card? This was a legendary, basically a captain card, commander card. So I couldn't have cloned that. Cloning that doesn't seem like it'd be very useful. You may have double spark enter the battle as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except enters with additional +1/+1 counter on it if that creature enters with an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker and isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary. So this would make you potentially make a copy of that. That would have worked. So we could have maybe made a copy of that and then use this to make some nightmares of that. But honestly, I think this was the card that you were supposed to make the copies of. Like, as far as I can tell. There's nothing in the sideboard. So yeah, I'm just totally bemused as far as what that deck was really trying to accomplish. We'll play like one more ranked game, and that'll probably be it for this stream. Let's see. We still got a little bit of news, and I imagine plenty of news will come out over the next couple days, and then we'll be back on track for Wednesday. Although, in all fairness, I should throw it out there that the Super Tuesday, then Super Tuesday 2, then the next Tuesday, like the US politics has distracted me more this year than I think ever in the past, and certainly Super Tuesday that happened last week didn't eat up at least an hour of my time that I could have been using to do something more important and more effective. Anyways, TechRaptor has an article. Details emerge on Resident Evil Resistance loot boxes, which I didn't realize that was gonna have loot boxes. So Resident Evil 3 seems to be potentially, without really reading this, all I need to hear is the phrase loot boxes and hate it. Even if you try to sell to me as not that bad, a not that bad version of loot boxes, I still am gonna hate it. But it kind of feels like we're getting a bait and switch here, where the Resident Evil 3 remake is going to be barely finished, and then the loot boxes and the multiplayer is going to be heavily pushed and emphasized, which I don't feel like that's going to be well received at all. Like, nobody really wants to play a multiplayer version of Resident Evil, and they just aren't ever going to. It's a stop trying to make that happen, it's never going to happen type experience. Yeah. And this wouldn't be the first time that Capcom has tried to push Resident Evil into a multiplayer experience that nobody wants. So we would have hoped with the failure of the Umbrella, what was it? Not Umbrella Chronicles, but I don't even know what the name of it was, but that other multiplayer game that came out last around the Resident Evil series. One would have hoped with the failure of that they would have been done with that idea, but they continue to keep trying to push it. Not like multiplayer is even super successful in that form factor. It would make more sense if there was a Dota League of Legends type experience. Oops. I should have played my Witch's Oven, and I didn't. If we could get up to gold tier 3, that'd be nice. But I don't think we're gonna do that today. And we're about to rank 69, so still feels like we've got plenty of time to get the mastery stuff done. TechRept has an article here. Auto Chess Heroes of Paragon has been delayed indefinitely. So, yeah. The standalone auto chess game that was going to be an Epic Store exclusive, I believe, is what this one was. Yeah. So, it's been delayed indefinitely, which probably means by the time they do release it, if they ever do release it, it will be very, very unimportant. Here we have a political game, Super Bernie World, which seems to be a political mix mash of Bernie Sanders and Super Mario Brothers, not in widescreen. Now, I don't know if this is an actual game with just Bernie Sanders as the main character, or if this is going to be like a Russian troll political game just to irritate people. Let's see. Well, it's there, it's free, it's English only. Play it if you want, or don't. Like, it's kind of weird to say. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know if we really need political speech in video games. And I mean, particularly when you know, if you promoted like this Bernie Sanders game because you're a fan of Bernie Sanders policies, you're also going to have to be okay with the multitude of social justice warrior games that would come out also around that. Like, and that's just kind of a path I don't think I want to go down. So I prefer them to stay very light on political speech in video games to practically non-existence. If you have a story to tell and it is a good analogy to a current political situation, that's fine, but we've already seen how there's been several games that have done it pretty bad around things like Brexit, whereas something like Passports Please just in general covered a generic dystopian world and told a political story without coming off very preachy. And that's the problem, is that even this Bernie Sanders game is going to be preachy for something you might agree with now, but it just opens the door to a lot more preaching of things you probably don't agree with. And in all honesty, playing a free Bernie Sanders Mario clone doesn't really do much. If you want to support Bernie Sanders, you either need to donate to his campaign, or vote in the primaries, or caucuses, or vote in the final presidential election. Those are the important things. Have conversations with people who might be actually swayed to voting for Bernie Sanders, instead of having screaming matches over the internet with people who are very possibly not even in the United States and able to vote. But yeah, if you want to be involved in politics in the United States or anywhere else, you have to be actually involved in it, not playing some video game. I don't think that there's too many people of voting age that don't know that the election is happening. So this really isn't a game that is really educating people too much on anything. It probably wouldn't be accurately educating you on anything anyways, even if there was a game that told you, here's where you vote, here's the days you vote, here's the stances of Bernie Sanders or whoever. I wouldn't really trust a video game to give that information on. Anyways. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, The Dark Eye Book of Heroes has been announced. Let's see. Maybe this isn't a video game? Maybe this is a tabletop game? Let's see. Let's watch this. No, it looks like a video game. Looks like it's somewhat card-based, somewhat Diablo-esque. Okay. There's a lot of these that are dangerously coming out at the same time. And so we'll have to be careful to not get flooded and bored by them. Apparently the Dark Eye was a tabletop game originally. It did seem like it was that kind of game. Well, we can attack with this and this, I guess. See, next we have a game on Steam called Honey Dance, which has a nice little image. Here it looks like it's a VR rhythm game where you're hitting things with maybe a microphone. On first look, though, it looks like it probably is some anime characters being flipped, though. It's not trying to sell itself on too much nudity or lewdness, though, which is probably to its detriment. This one video of how it plays doesn't really seem to show a lot of interesting gameplay. Yeah, it spends the vast majority of its time just showing the experience. It's $11.99 discounted, English full audio only. Yeah. I would say by far the best idea here is to have a thumbnail and a single character to represent your game instead of just a collection of anime characters. But this character here on this thumbnail doesn't even really look like this character here. Completely different skin tone for one thing. Alright, we're gonna kill that. So yeah, that's not one that's gonna make it. And can we take it? I think we can. I think we can just do this, and do 5 damage. And then that leaves this one to do damage, and I can just block this and take 7. Next we have a game on Steam called The Art of Boxing, which actually looks like it might be a decent boxing game. There's some wobbliness in the animations and such. It doesn't look particularly well smoothed out, but I'll wait and let some bad reviews tell me that. I'm desperate to see a good boxing game that isn't just trying to sell on VR. This one doesn't even support VR. It does have a third-party EULA. It's English full audio. It's early access for $10.79. I'm gonna put it on the follow list. Hopefully they can improve it greatly. They probably can't. But I am desperate for a Punch-Out style, very nicely animated, very smoothly running style game. There we go. Tap that one. Next, we have a game on Steam called Orm's Death Run, which looks like an asset game where you're running around jumping on garbage things, shooting clones of yourself. It's $5.59, English only. Yep. Absolutely nothing impressive there. We have 4 more tabs, which really isn't saying much since I had to reopen all the tabs. But whatever. Ooh. I need one thing that can do 1 damage. I've lost. Hey, that's the one thing that can do 1 more damage. Alright, we had a good run here. 3rd time's the charm, I guess, to get the stream to actually work.
Every pebble is a soldier in my army.
And I'm starting to get some decent cards when I get random cards also. So there's something to be said about that. We've got another peg, which I guess we'll put here. To get another cosmetic thing. Cosmetic thing. And this is a Ravnica Allegiance pack, so not surprising that there's 2 new cards there. So, yep. Not surprising that we're getting more copies of things we're actually missing. Whether I want it or not, it seems like I'm going to end up with a lot of Ravnica cards and Ravnica Allegiance cards and the War of the Spark cards. Like, I don't feel like I've opened too many packs of War of the Spark, but even there you can see this collection is pretty heavy in that. And I would only need 1 more victory, which I can get off screen, and that would get my daily 10 victories that give me experience towards this. And when we get to rank 70, which we almost certainly will, we get a sleeve, and then we're working our way up to getting some more crystals, gems, which are important. 80 gets us the final version of the owl. And there's, I guess, about 800 gems, which would put us at 2,290 gems, which isn't bad, but it is still slightly problematic because that does leave me with about 800 gems I'm short of, and we'll have to do that through drafting, and we may have to just really hunker down and do a bunch of drafts. Let's see. Yeah. I think what we're gonna have to do is, because I'm usually only getting about 200 at most gems, I think we're gonna have to just start doing a draft every stream. Yeah. Because if we don't, I'm not gonna have enough gems, I think, by the end of the month, even if I do the entire mastery. Alright, we have 4 articles, and so Gamatsu has an article here. The Persistence is coming to PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC this summer. It's currently on PlayStation VR. Looks like some kind of sci-fi horror first-person shooter game, I guess. Let's see what it looks like on the trailer. Alright, you're on Space Station. There's some monsters. They're gonna try and attack you and slice you. I don't know if you could play a VR game where you were just swinging your arms backwards and forwards, clawing at people in VR, or because you would just be swinging your arms backwards and forwards in reality and smashing people and smashing over bookshelves and such. Yeah, that's kind of the problem of VR, is that you need this giant empty space that nobody is ever going to own, and then a very expensive headset on top of that. We have a game on Steam called Avorion. Avorion? Avorion? I have no clue. Looks like a space game. Let's see. A procedural co-op space sandbox game. $24.99, no discount, English and German. Doesn't sound like my type of experience. It looks very nice though, so if that sounds interesting to you, I would recommend checking it out, but it's just not for me. Gamatsu has an article here. A new Worms game is teased for a 2020 release, which would certainly explain why Team 17 gave up on like The Escapist and sold the rights to that, is that they want to go back to making Worms games. Although them getting bored of making content for The Escapist and then going back to their bread and butter of making even more content for Worms series is kind of ridiculous. They need to constantly be moving forward towards a new series and new intellectual properties, not just bouncing between one or two ideas. TechRaptor has an article here, digging into Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. Is this a real review of Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, or is this just a advertisement? It's just an advertisement for a game that isn't out yet. Alright, well that brings me to the Humble Bundle. Let's see if there's any new Humble Bundle out right now. Let's see, the Humble Choice. Nope, no new Humble Bundle. And then let me go back to my Twitter feed and let's see if there's anything new to mention. Some new games have come out. A game called I Am Fish enters full production for a 2021 release. We don't really need to talk about a game that's not even begun production yet. 2K Games is the latest publisher to pull out from GeForce Now. If that wasn't the company I mentioned earlier, then yet another company's pulled out. There's really no extra bit of information you're getting from any of that, though. It's just like, yeah, more and more companies will pull out. Let's see. Scrolling down. Is there any other bits of news? International Women's Day happens. Not a lot of bits of information or video game related news around that, though. There are definitely women working in the video game industry, but that's kind of all you can say is. Let's see. Magic the Gathering Arena says changes to Historic and Brawler incoming. You're going to get, you have 2 Okos. He was banned. So yeah, more changes happening. Gonna just open that and look at that later. things are getting banned, mostly Oko. Yes, Your Grace amassed 600,000 in revenue over the launch weekend, so it did very, very well for 2 days. Project xCloud has a preview update from Major Nelson, enabling you to discover and play more games. A blog post. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. There's still... Gamasutra is still tweeting about Forge, Stab, and Switch meant to foil data miners, which at this point it feels like that's old news and doesn't need to be reported on or retweeted. Yeah, Gamasutra is still kind of bad about retweeting it themselves and promoting old news. In case you missed it, I guess. Apparently Kitsune Games is one of the developers I follow, and they were the publishers of Super Bernie World. They also put it on itch.io. Still scrolling down. See, Tim Swinney says Epic will throw its support behind NVIDIA's GeForce Now. Weird. That is a weird kind of late to the party way to support something that nobody else wants to support. And it puts the Epic Game Store in direct opposite position to what many of the game developers who might have put their publishers their games on the Epic Game Store wants. Well, that's seems to be all the news that happened. Looking at my statistics, it seems like the stream went fine. We didn't have any drop frames or anything like that. So maybe I'll check the playback of this video, but it seems like everything fixed itself. I really don't know what the problem was, and that's as infuriating as the problem in the first place, because I have no guarantee that it won't happen again. Meanwhile, I lost all those tabs, which probably isn't that infuriating, frankly, but it will be once I find any extra time to start programming my digital e-sign, and I need all that C++ or C programming language reference. Well, that's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good